Welcome back, guys. It's Jason with your Hopium Free Crypto channel. Today we're looking at an altcoin which I am quite excited about. And you probably know overall I'm bearish on the entire cryptocurrency space. At least that's what the loud minority are saying in some of the comments. But today we want to really look at some cryptos, well, in particular one crypto, which is holding up relatively well compared to Bitcoin and some of the major cryptos which we also hold, like Ethereum and Cardano. So Bitcoin over the last 24 hours has been up about 3%. Ethereum has outpaced it by about 1%. And the coin that we're looking at here is FTX today. So you may have seen some big news on FTX over the last few days. This is great news for the cryptocurrency, but it also plays into the long-term fundamentals of the project. And it has grown relatively well, pretty big over the last 2 years since it was first brought out. So FTX, if you don't know, is an exchange. It has been growing rapidly, taking market share of some of the majors. And my outlook is that it will probably keep taking bigger and bigger market share from the likes of, say, Binance and some of the other big players in the top 20. So there is a lot of competition in the space. Obviously, we've got Crypto.com as well. But FTX is playing very much into the professional trader space. So they're getting very, very high volumes at the moment. So this is one of the coins that I had been looking at in terms of accumulating, dollar cost averaging in during this downtrend. I've been bearish overall. I've been selling out like I was doing in May of small projects. I wasn't very convinced of how well they would hold up against Bitcoin. And I've been waiting for a time to get into FTX. I'd mentioned this to our group. So this is the Investor Accelerator group on the 7th of July. So about 2.5 weeks ago. You can see the date up here, FTT. The pricing is a little more than it is now, relatively the same on the USD, but I want to be gaining on my Bitcoin value. So these are some good areas that I'm looking at in terms of dollar cost averaging. So that's what I'm talking about here. This is 2.5 weeks ago. You probably think that I absolutely hate altcoins overall, but that is not entirely true. I want to go with projects that have a strong fundamental base because I want to hold them for a little bit longer than the average few weeks, maybe that big spike during an altcoin season, and then they basically dump 90-95%. So the big news that we've seen, this is a day and a half old now. Valuation of cryptocurrency exchange FTX surges to 18 billion after closing Series B round. So we've got big names buying into FTX exchange and their growth over the next 2, 5, 10 years. They see this growing a hell of a lot bigger. So this a round of they got a $900 million investment from big players. Over 60 investors participated, the likes of Sequoia Capital, Coinbase Ventures, Paul Tudor Jones family. This funding round is one of the biggest in cryptocurrency history, and it gives them a valuation of 18 billion. Last year, FTX raised funds in a Series A funding round and has since grown its revenue by 75 times. It has grown a hell of a lot, and they've got a pretty good founder at the realms here of Sam Bankman-Fried. He looks like he's doing everything right and growing at astronomical paces compared to other projects in the market. This is not just me saying it. This is other well-known figures in the space, and you can see it from their results. Stuff is getting built, and it is coming out quickly. Now, I don't want to get confused between the funding round of how much these venture capitalists are, these investors are valuing the company at 18 billion, because as we can see on CoinMarketCap, the token, the FTT token, is only valued at 2.8 billion. So that is substantially less than what the investors are valuing the business at. Does that mean it should be worth 18 billion? Not necessarily, but personally, the way I'm reading this is that that's signaling to me that these guys are happy to put in nearly $1 billion, and they see this thing going a lot further during the next stage of the bull market and throughout this whole growth of the cryptocurrency space. So I'm betting on the fact that I would think the token is going to be worth more than a $2.8 billion market cap. So that's at a current price of, call it around $30 per FTT. FTX has come a very long way since they first did their seed round in August 6th, 2019. So that was the announcement date. They raised $8 million back then, and now 2 years later, they're raising $900 million for a total valuation of a company at 18 billion. You can see all the different investors that have invested throughout the period. And if we look at the next page, this also shows us the current investments, some of the big names here. So this is the total amount that they've funded, 916 million. Series B, number of investors says 20, and then this is the history of the rest of the rounds. Now, before we get to the charts, I'm just covering some of the majors that are covering this news. So we got the Wall Street Journal, crypto exchange FTX valued at 18 billion in funding round. We've got CoinDesk also covering it, giving us a few more details. Sam Bankman-Fried, FTX exchange has raised the largest funding round in crypto history. Now, I'm also relating this to Coinbase's they went public this year as well. So looking at Coinbase and how much they're valued at, the crypto exchange that went public in April with a market cap of about 86 billion. That was at the time. Now they're worth about half that, around 40 to 45 billion dollars. And it doesn't look like FTX wants to go public just yet because they've gone for another private seed round and they're valuing it at 18 billion. So if they do happen to go public at some point, they're already at just short of halfway the value of Coinbase. Now over to the charts, and we're going to look at FTT and compare it also with some of the majors which we have been holding, looking at ETH and ADA. Now, the main thing I want to look at is FTT against Bitcoin, because at the end of the day, my view is that Bitcoin is going to increase in value before majority of the altcoins, and we're going to see a surge in Bitcoin, then the altcoins come. That's just part of the cryptocurrency cycle, which we've seen over the last few cycles now. So FTT BTC is holding up relatively well. We've bounced off our favorite 50% support zone, and we had a lot of volume over the last week. So we saw the market crash on this huge volume on Binance just for those few days. It looks kind of odd compared to the last few months, but we've seen higher lows form here, and where the closes were, again, were higher than the previous areas. If we throw that onto some candles so you can see the real body of the candles, you can see some nice support zones continuing to rise. That's what we want to see. So the next zone is to break out of the 9.3, so 0.00093 zone, and then get above the 0.001. That's where we recently saw some resistance and then resistance again. So if this is a sustained move, then the market should break these levels. So that's pretty good on FTT BTC. The last thing I want to look at is the range from the top to where our current price is. So we're down about 26% on our Bitcoin value. But if we look at some of the other majors like ETH, it's about the same. So from the top to the current point on ETH, about 23, and then ADA from the top to its current level is about 29. So on the grand scheme of things, comparing to major altcoins, which I'm invested in, FTT is looking relatively strong. And if we compare that to something else which also had such a massive run during the last stage of the bull market, something like Matic, which has pretty high hopes and a favorite among retail investors, this is down nearly 60%. So call it 57 or 58%. I would say that that is a lot weaker than FTT and potentially has further to fall. But the main point here is FTT is holding up relatively well. It's above its 50% zone. Should it get under the 0.0007 level, it'd start to look a little bit weaker. However, there are some support levels sitting a little further down, so it's not all bad. But if it did start to break down from those levels, then things might have changed within the fundamentals. So ideally, we want to see this market continue to hold up, continue to show strength. And this is a dollar cost averaging area that I personally like the look of. With that said, it's not financial advice. Make sure you do your own research and look at the charts in your own particular way. I know everyone else has other ways of looking at things, but this is the way that I read it. And I definitely think that we're starting to get some strength here, especially with the higher lows forming. Again, the flip side to that is if the lows start to break down, something fundamentally is different than what it was before. And so I reserve the right to obviously change my decision on my investment. A look at the FTT USD chart. So this is USDT on Binance. So we're comparing it to our fiat currencies. We've got another higher low forming here, and the bodies of these candles are again forming above the previous lows, which also had pretty strong volume as they made their way to this top. We did see it fail at the major 50% zone. We do have a slightly higher low from the major low, but a lower low from the previous low. So it's still in a slightly down trend, but it's uncertain, and hopefully we get a push above the $32.50 level. With that, we definitely want to see it start to close and form bases over $33. That's why I've got my alert sitting here. So until then, it's still in a bit of a no man's land, but like we could see with a lot of the fundamentals, things look like they're coming together, especially for a longer term sustained move. And looking at the Bitcoin chart, it shows the strength in FTT to hold up against Bitcoin, especially while the overall market is bearish. Now, of course, if Bitcoin falls, then we're going to see the price of FTT USD also fall, and it's also possible that it will take out these lows, and then make its way back to some other support levels, like we can see back here at $10 or $12, which is a pretty long way away. So we got time. Fundamentals are looking good. BTC price is holding up. It compares quite well to the other major cryptocurrencies, and if all goes well, then the competition is something like Binance, and Binance is currently at $50 billion, whereas FTT is at $2.8 billion. The idea here is that we get somewhere close to Binance. They are building out very, very fast, and Binance also backs FTX Exchange. Coinbase Ventures, another competitor, also backs FTX Exchange. And so I can just see the space growing bigger and bigger, and they are producing a lot of products. So FTX is growing a lot of new products out there to continue to take market share from some of the other leaders. Now I want to hear from you guys. What do you think about FTX? Have you done any research on it? Do you think they have the possibility, do they have the potential to take market share away and climb to a valuation similar to Binance and also keep up with it and potentially flip it? Let me know in the comments down below. Make sure you've hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, bell notification icon, follow me on Instagram and Twitter for daily Q&As and crypto news updates. There is a special on the Investor Accelerator. Make sure you find a link to that in the description down below. I'll see you guys at the next video. Until then, have more fun to get more done.